Hello and welcome again to another installment of Some Idiot Reads, where I'm Cy, and it's time to read some shit. Today we are returning once more to the fantastic writing of one Coyote Wallace. Right here. Coyote Wallace. 142 followers. Those numbers could be higher. We can get those numbers higher. Hopefully, this will encourage those numbers to go higher, at least just a little bit. Writer, humorist, professional degenerate, and possibly 3 coyotes doing a very bad impersonation of a human. Having talked with him extensively, that's pretty accurate. If I seem tired, it's because this is another early in the morning recording, because I did not get it done during the course of the week. And I'm tired because... Let's just gesture vaguely at everything, shall we? I will do my idiot ramble at the end. That way, if any of you want to just stick with the reading, you'll get the reading and you don't have to listen to me ramble on. But please do stick around to the end. As much as I meant to at the end of the last one with the Hell of House Bill 495, I meant to more explicitly call out the links to Coyote's Medium, or to his Medium, to his Ko-Fi. I got caught up in the fact that absolutely pissed me off, so I failed on that front. My apologies there, Coyote. Please stick around to the very end, where I will do a more explicit call out of that. And the links will also be in the description of the video. So, what we have got today is I don't know what I was going to try and do there. All right, screw it. I'm just going to dive in. Where are we at? 2 minutes in? Okay. Hopefully your attention is still there. If you're still there, I love you. You're fantastic. All right. Today, Fire Between the Notes. The history, origin, and importance of music to the Appalachian struggle. Now, I seem to recall, too, that when he was writing this, when he was talking about how he was just falling down a rabbit hole of just research and just going all over the place. So I'm actually looking forward to this one. We start out with a picture of a coyote with very striking eyes. Just take a moment and look at that. Appalachia, the place those like myself call home, where the history is as dark and bloody as the ground, has long been shrouded in secrecy. The isolation of the region, the efforts of industry, and our own wish to be left alone to our own devices have long served to keep the outside world at arm's length. We are proud, sometimes cantankerous, and forever unbowed by the machinations of men or the world beyond our mountains. Our people are as varied in their origins as the mountains are plentiful, drawn here over the years by the twin flames of prosperity and freedom. When slavery and the keeping of indentured servants by early colonists produced people who yearned for freedom, those people fled to the mountains of Appalachia, where they knew the slave masters and those who owned their lives would not follow. There they encountered indigenous people, and soon, through the alchemy of isolation and time, became the genesis point for the Melungeon people. What follows is a picture of a cabin that I'm not sure if that is. I don't think that's Melungeon people. I know it's settlers of some sort, but it's a cabin deep in the woods. Maybe not settlers. Settlers might not be the right word. I fully expect to get clapped upside the head digitally for this. Well, for that. When bellies went empty across Europe, it was the bounty of work to be found in Appalachia that summoned immigrants to our hills. Here they found opportunities digging coal, but they also faced hardship, the likes of which few have ever seen. These people endured, however, and their ways, means, and cultures were stitched together by shared experience to form the basis of the Appalachian way of life. They arrived here as slaves, indentured servants, and poor immigrants, each bringing their own way of doing things, their own language, and their own idea of what tomorrow should be. Tanker coal miners developed a taste for their newfound Italian brethren's cooking, and Italian miners fell in love with the fiery, clipped cadence of our people's tongue. The Melungeon people gave us legends of their haints and spirits, and filled our hills with grave houses. The Welsh, old hands at digging coal, taught us how to prop up mountains, while those from Slavic and Polish backgrounds showed us how to keep the cold out of a shanty when the mine operators burned down our homes. Of all the things that we have done, the Battle of Blair Mountain, the pulling of black coal from the heart of Earth itself, the brewing of moonshine that would make us famous, and the raising of horses that would be the prize of princes, there's one thing that will outlast even the coal. That is the music of these mountains. I am Coyote Wallace. This is my dispatches from Appalachia, and today we take a look at the singers, poets, and music that are a part of our culture, and how that music is just as important as Sid Hatfield and Mother Jones to the efforts of all free Appalachians. This is Fire Between the Notes, the history, origin, and importance of music to the Appalachian struggle. What follows is a picture of a band. There's something about the dude with like the pipe sitting just to the woman's left. Like the tilt of his hat. It's that person is striking. The tonic and the times. Like all aspects of Appalachia, our music is a blend of multicultural elements, all working in harmony to produce something entirely unique. In the works of early Appalachian recording artists like Fiddlin' John Carson, Bascom Lunsford, Clarence Ashley, and Doc Boggs, one can find traces of Ulster Scots ballads, Irish fiddle playing, African-American hymns, and the unique descending scale believed to owe its origins to Cherokee and Melungeon influences. This produced a sound similar in composition to that of the South, but given distinction upon closer examination by the Appalachian musicians' greater emphasis on the immigrant influences of our people. There's so many coffee in this, I do not. The music of old Appalachia, in the time before even King Cole walked our hills, was rife with ballads such as Pretty Sorrow, Young Hunting, The Cuckoo, and Lord Randall, which, looks like there are links to Wikipedia articles for 3 of those. Well worth checking out when you inevitably go back and actually read the article yourself, give it a clap, and show some algorithmic love to this person. And when these ballads weren't enough to tickle the fancy of a listener on a front porch, there were always the fiddle tunes. The Appalachian people had a tendency to take these old fiddle songs, many of them plucked from Gaelic-speaking regions, and weave the music into something entirely different, as is the case with the mountain-born Leather Breeches, which was derived from a more traditional Lord MacDonald's reel. I think I know that song, actually. Not Leather Bridges, but McDonald's Reel. I'll open a new tab. I want to check that after I'm done reading. These adaptations were more than just superficial differences. They were sharpenings of the core of the music itself. One such honing of the blade, owed to famed 18th century Scottish fiddle player Neil Gow, involved the use of short but powerful rhythmic strokes of his bow across the fiddle strings. This particular brand of fiddle playing would go on to become the very foundational building block of all Appalachian music. Through repeated practice and experimentation, this variation on the saw stroke technique became the preferred method used to produce fiery, sharp notes that dot our auditory landscape, the same way the mountains do our geographical one. shows it looks like a woman with a fiddle or a violin. I never actually know the difference between the two. But a fiddle or a violin, and I believe next to her is a mandolin? I think that's a mandolin. Or a lute? Is there a difference? I don't know. Of course, as I have said, these influences were not merely limited to these Gaelic and Celtic origins. African Americans brought their own dish to this musical potluck dinner in the form of hymns, percussive rhythms, and one of Appalachia's most iconic instruments, the banjo. Cecil James Sharp, the famed English collector of folk music, teacher, and musician himself, noted that Appalachian ballad singers utilized and incorporated the same arbitrary dwelling upon certain notes of the melody, usually at the weakest accents. This is a distinctive feature of both early African American folk music and traditional music from West Africa. Similarly, the banjo owes its iconic association with Appalachia to the region's capacity for blending European and West African cultures through intense isolation and shared community. The gathering of people to share songs, techniques, and instruments is an environment that required a high degree of self-reliance and ingenuity just to survive. The gathering of people to share songs, techniques, and instruments in an environment that required a high degree of self-reliance and ingenuity just to survive led to the meeting of the accounting and the bandora. The accounting, which there is a link to Wikipedia on that, is the folkluk of the Jola people, found in Senegal, Gambia, and Guinea-Bissau in West Africa. This traditional instrument has more than passing similarity to the homemade gourd banjos that would spring up later, primarily in the existence of two long melody strings and a short third string, the drone string, which closely resembles the fifth string found on the modern banjo. This, along with the fact that the accounting, like the old-time banjo, is tuned in different tunings, draws a clear line of origin. The other half of the equation was the bandora, a long-necked, plucked string instrument belonging to the bass cittern family. Believed to have been built around 1500 in England by John Rose, it lacked the re-entrant tuning of traditional citterns. Instead, it featured 6 or even 7 pairs of unison strings called courses, tuned in a more lute-like fashion, but without the high D note found on a bass lute. This served to create a more traditional proportion closer to modern guitar tunings, typically C, D, G, C, E, A, with the occasional 7th low G string. The bandora remained popular for over a century, and Thomas Morley called for a bandora, or Pandora, in his consort lessons. And what's currently on the screen right now, there's a picture of what I assume is the accounting, based on the description provided before, as well as a bandora. Okay. Amidst the poverty, long nights, and tight-knit communities, these instruments and their descendants wove honeyed music into the Appalachian air. Over time, they would morph, meld, and be piecemealed into the modern banjo. Like the American people themselves, its pieces may have come from different places, but here it found a new home. Yet this was hardly the only instrument that saw popularity in the region at the time. The mandolin, bowed psaltery, dulcimer, and more, each with its own distinctive origin, would, in the hands of the Appalachian, one day gain a unique flavor that owed a little bit to its point of origin and a whole lot to mountain spirit. What follows is a picture of a bowed psaltery. I don't think I'm familiar with that one. Okay. Now, the final ingredient in this stew of multicultural euphony. Ooh, big Scrabble word there. I actually don't know that one, but I can gather like it's referencing Auditory euphoria? That's going to be my guess on that. I'll have to look that one up later, though. That's a good word. I like that. Sorry, just total, side bit. Now, the final ingredient in this stew of multicultural euphony was not something any one culture brought with them, but rather the shared experiences they endured as they carved out a place among the mountains. These hills, even before they were consumed by the hunger and greed of industry, were not kind. The weather was harsh, the isolation severe, and the wilderness unforgiving of fools. Yet, against odds and adversity of all shapes and sizes, they endured. However, the hardest days were still to come, as King Coal, our name for the wealthy coal barons who owned the mines, cast his ravenous eyes upon the green mountains of Appalachia. This king would have whatever he desired, and he did not care what means were needed to feed his insatiable hunger for profit. The hills would soon fill with the sound of his ambition and his method. Dynamite, drilling, dust, and death. The Appalachian people would answer the only way they knew how, with fire in the notes and spirits that sometimes bent but never broke. The Mediant and the Men of the Deep Mine. What follows is a picture of 3 coal miners dated April of 1918. The Lorraine Coal and Dock Company, I think. Laredo Coal Miners. We jump forward now to the height of Appalachia's coal boom, a time when the barons of industry made money hand over fist from our coal, while the miners who died to bring it to the surface starved in their homes. This was a time of great sorrow in the Appalachian heart, as our people were treated as little more than machinery of the mines themselves, bought for cheap and replaced quickly when they could no longer work. Silicosis choked men to death in the open air. The conditions of the mines so horrible, they were not fit even for comparison to hell, and oppression was the norm of each day. The Appalachian landscape was filled with new faces from different corners of the globe, than those who had settled here previously. King Coal needed a larger labor force than the meager number of people provided by the hills, and to accomplish this, a new wave of immigrants was brought to Appalachia to dig alongside those already here. While, at first, this created great tension in these mountains, these new arrivals would soon be seen as brothers and sisters in serfdom. Despite what you may believe about the Appalachian stereotype, these new arrivals were, simply by virtue of their struggle, soon to be as close as kin. This marriage of circumstance would alter every aspect of Appalachian life, from the food we ate to our language, and, ultimately, even our music. They faced the same struggles, the same cold, the same hunger, the same press of the coal operator's boot on their throats. These people made music about their lives, and, through it, the record of my people's suffering was kept safe from the distorting hands of King Coal's influence. They could alter the records of mine deaths, they could vanish union organizers into the night, and they could dynamite our houses, but they would not erase the music that was so often shared among our people. Not nearly enough can be said about the harshness of the work done at King Coal's behest, nor the miserable conditions. While the Appalachian people lived in coal camps under the harsh and watchful eyes of the gun thugs, their dissatisfaction was made manifest through their music. These often mournful ballads were popular and even tolerated as acceptable by the gun thugs, and through listening you may glimpse a miner's life. One of the first recorded songs about coal mining, steeped in the distinctive Appalachian sound, was the 1908 ballad Down in a Coal Mine, by the Edison Concert Band. And there is a link here if you wish to go listen to that song. Check that out. Who formed in the 1890s to bring the sound of the mountains down to the people in the valleys. These men, like many early musicians of the region, were former miners themselves. Yet they, and many others, saved their best for moments away from the ears of the gun thugs and operators. What follows is a picture of the Edison concert band. Another song that beautifully illustrates the predatory tactics of King Coal and the harsh realities of a coal miner's life was written by Isaac Hanna in 1895. Hanna's ballad, The Company Store, another link to a YouTube video. I'm guessing it's a YouTube video of it here. Why would it be anything else? Can you tell I haven't had coffee yet? Anyway. Hanna's ballad, The Company Store, combined Scots-Irish fiddle playing and ballad composition with thematic elements from African American field hymns, creating one of the most striking accounts of life under the occupation of Appalachia by King Coal's forces, the company store. The bleak picture painted by this song alone helped fuel the fires of the coming labor movement, and it is cited even today as one of the battle hymns of Blair Mountain. While the coal operators sat in their fancy concert halls, dressed as fine as New York royalty, listening to the Edison concert band or others like them sing about the toil of the work, there were ballads and tunes sung in the camps that the operators did not approve of. Men like Doc Boggs, one of the originators of quote-unquote hillbilly bluegrass, a blend of Appalachian folk and African American blues that utilizes both picking and frailing techniques, likely took great risk upon himself when performing the Coal Creek March. Another YouTube video is at this moment, so there you go for that. First penned in 1891, but not recorded until 1920, its playing would have likely provoked harsh consequences from the brutal gun thugs tasked with stamping out any signs of Union activity throughout the 1920s. Follows is a picture of Doc Boggs with a banjo. Not that Doc Boggs was afraid of a little gun thuggery. Born in Dorton, Virginia, he grew up steeped in the struggle of labor against the forces of King Coal's quest for profit. He was the youngest of 10 children, his father struggling to make ends meet by working as a carpenter and blacksmith for the mines. Though music was said to be an integral part of his upbringing, his distinctive sound, one that would later become the blueprint for Appalachian bluegrass, was owed to time spent in the African American communities of these mountains. His mentor, Go Lightning, was a wandering black banjo player who walked the early rail lines of Appalachia with Doc in tow. Of course, Doc was only part of the beginning, and soon he would be joined by a refrain that stretched back through time and would still be echoing off these mountains nearly 100 years later. As Appalachia slid headlong into the fire and blood of the coal wars, our music continued to evolve, reflecting our struggle. By 1920, the Appalachian people were embroiled in a bitter fight, not just for fair pay, but for the very right to remain in these mountains. Gun thugs, operating under the guise of martial law and as mine security agents, preyed upon innocent Appalachians. The mine operators, emboldened by the protection of these hired enforcers, grew even crueler, and the people chafed beneath the boot of occupation. The earliest recorded songs of the coal wars give us a snapshot into the lives of the miners and those who fought beside them for freedom. The Law in the Hills of West Virginia by Walter Sechrist, himself a veteran of the coal wars and raised in a coal camp, vividly describes the atrocities forced upon these people. Meanwhile, the Lonesome Jail Blues, 1932, by Aunt Molly Jackson, paints a haunting picture of the cost of standing with the United Mine Workers of America. There's also a link to Lonesome Jailhouse Blues there in the text. And a picture of Aunt Molly Jackson from a newspaper, captioned, "Mountain Gal. Meet Aunt Molly Jackson from the Kentucky mountains, who's been a singin' and a composin' hillbilly ballads since she was a little tyke of 10. Having had 3 husbands, she and her pipe now go to New York University as assistant instructor in folklore. She is 46 and of English, Irish, Scotch, and Cherokee Indian descent. In time, others lent their voices and talents to the fight for freedom, equality, and workers' rights. Brave women like Hazel Dickens, the wife of a miner who had endured the brutal occupation of bloody Harlan, blended elements of Appalachian bluegrass and hymns with the foundation of modern folk music. Others, like Elaine Perky and Florence Reese, penned ballads of the miner's struggle, ensuring that no matter King Cole's efforts, our history would be enshrined in fiery notes carried on the wind. These musicians, and others like them, played an integral role in the decades-long battle against King Cole's dominion over our lands. When the coal industry brought up the schools, newspapers, and judges, it was the musicians, sometimes at great personal cost, who fought back against the propaganda that declared Appalachians fit only for the coal pits. Take Florence Reese, for example. Her now famous song, Which Side Are You On? Link here in the text, was born from the very real terror of gun thug occupation and the scars it left on the psyche of our people. Florence was married to Sam Reese, a proud Union man, and during the bloody Harlan struggles of the 1930s, armed gunmen were sent after them at the behest of the coal operators. Shortly after the thugs ransacked her home and threatened her family, Florence grabbed a company store calendar and, on its back, wrote the words that would become one of the most enduring labor anthems in history. What follows is a picture of Florence Reese. Ballads and hymns of this struggle, woven by the likes of Elaine Perky, Merle Travis, and Hazel Dickens, became the diamonds scattered throughout our mountains. Many of these songs remain buried, kept close for comfort, or simply beneath the notice of the wider public. They were sung around the hearth, and in the cracking tones of ma-ma shucking beans, or hummed by a miner as he set off to work in the morning. But with the rise of the folk movement in the 1960s, a new generation of artists joined their voices with those of the past, resurrecting the musical history of the Appalachian people. New voices, new melodies, and new structures were added to a song that had been playing in these mountains for generations, and soon they would echo across the whole country. The coda for country and the outro for Appalachia. And what follows is a picture captioned Rising Appalachia. As the sound of the guns on Blair Mountain faded into history, the battlefield for workers' rights would shift to places like Bloody Harlan and Bad Breathitt County. As this struggle shifted, the music itself began to change and spread out across the nation. No longer were the people of Appalachia and their culture consigned to the dark hills and hollers of their homeland. Instead, many began to filter out into the greater world, carrying the culture they had picked up in Appalachia with them. The use of string quartets, fiddles, banjos, ballad structures, hymn cadences, and the underpinnings of bluegrass itself would become the foundation on which country music was built. Later, when combined with musical influences from south of the border, the music of these mountains would once again mutate into the modern force known as country western music. Much like the coal mined from the mountains, the Appalachian sound would serve to fuel a revolution all its own. Musicians like the Carter family, from Mesa Spring, Virginia, became major influences, not on just country and bluegrass, but on everything from southern gospel and pop to even rock and roll. Musical hellraisers like Clarence Tom Ashley, who'd been kicking around since the 20s, lent a wild mountain aggression to their approach to clawhammer banjo and guitar alike. Even the distinctive yodel made famous by Hank Williams, sometimes known as blue yodeling, and as an aside, me sigh reading that, man, that takes me back thinking about Hank Williams. I grew up with that. My dad was a huge Hank Williams fan. I hear that in my head. Owed its origins to the Appalachian sound. And influence of the mountains wouldn't stop at country music. While country continued to evolve, The Appalachian sound, carried by the likes of Loretta Lynn, Dolly Parton, and more, remained at its heart. At the same time, the old battle hymns and struggle music of the Coal Wars were rediscovered by the American folk movement. These songs, which once sustained miners on Blair Mountain or in bloody Harlan as they clashed with the forces of capitalism and coal, became dynamite in the hands of a new generation, thrown time and again at the injustices of the American corporate baron. It follows a picture of Loretta Lynn. Artists like Phil Oakes, Barbara Dane, Jane Ritchie, and Peggy Seeger not only preserved the songs, but carried their spirit forward by weaving them into their own work. While Oakes sang of No Christmas in Kentucky, YouTube link in the video, or in the article, and Gene Ritchie warned of Blue Diamond Mines, another YouTube link there, the sound of the mountains continued to spread like wildfire, its embers carrying the rebellious nature of the indomitable will of Appalachia, just as much as the dulcimer or the banjo did. Now, in modern times, a whole new generation has risen to carry the burning coal seam-born flame of Appalachia's musical past into the future. A fresh slew of faces, wild hearts, and untamable spirits arm themselves with fiddle, banjo, and six-string guitar in the face of an uncertain world. The influence of these hills, no longer confined to folk or even country, surges forth at the fingertips of a new wave of artists. What follows is a picture of Barbara Dane. Looks like it was a CD case. Benjamin Todd and his Lost Dog Street Band, molded by the tramp life and ruggedness of Tennessee, carry the introspective ballads and sharp blend of fiddle playing that would have been at home in any hard-worked coal camp. Sarah Lynch Thomason, as fiery as Mother Jones and as hell-bent on justice as the miners in Blair, stirs hearts by bringing the songs of the Coal Wars into the modern era. Hunter Root blends intricate picking with stoner rock to paint pictures of the modern-day struggle in Appalachia that few could understand, while Logan Halstead ensures the sad ballads keep coming. What follows is a picture of Benjamin Todd. The local honeys are out there right now, using the same harmonies that once made coal barons weep, while bread and circus bring the same rage that once compelled miners to lift their rifles, this time to the jagged landscape of punk rock. Some, like Brad Paisley, are famous beyond the need for listening. Others, like Jubal's kin, remain undeservedly obscure. But one thing is as certain as the sunrise. They all carry a piece of the mountains in every note they play. What follows is a picture of Jubal's kin. I could go on for pages upon pages, and a writer could fill in a library's worth of books on those who have left their mark, and those who are still carving out their names. These musicians, whether listed here or waiting for another dispatch, and I feel certain there must be another, if I'm to give credit where it's due, have all played a part in shaping the people of this region. Those of us in Appalachia are often maligned by harsh stereotypes in media, but in music, we are redeemed. Through music, not just our past is safeguarded, but the very lessons and values of those who we are preserved. So, until we meet again, turn it up loud, slap your knee, and enjoy the show. Solidarity forever. And that was, once more, Fire Between the Notes, the history, origin, and importance of music to the Appalachian struggle. I'm going to go on back down here now. Let's see. Got some nice list of music there. Additional music from commenter Raffi. Let's see. So yeah, that was that. Solid thing, and several musicians I've never heard of, and several links to various bits of music I'll need to check out. As I said, I want to go ahead and call out here down at the bottom. First things first, if you go through, you read the article, you see right here, view claps, you should give it a clap. Okay? Give me a clap. There we go. You actually have to clap the clap to get the clap. Clap, 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 clap. But give the article a clap. Go through and just give all of his articles a clap. You know, show some appreciation. He absolutely deserves that. Also, right here, you've got this little icon. Looks like a hand holding up a heart. It's because it is. It's giving a tip. You can go to his Ko-Fi, and assuming it does not hurt you to do so, and you can afford to do so, leave him a tip. Let him, show him some love. $1, $5, what have you. It's things like that that help, with him being able to continue writing and researching and doing all this stuff here. If you enjoyed the video, also, please give it a like. And more importantly, seriously, more importantly than even a like, go to Coyote's page, give him a follow. Make sure you're following him right here where it says following. Make sure you give him a follow. Like his articles with the little claps. Give some love for that. Give him a tip if you can. And then if, after all of that, you find yourself going, oh yeah, that side guy did read this, and that's how I got here. Sure, I guess. Give a like on the video. Give a follow on the channel. We have more content than just me reading. Of course, there's always a possibility you're one of those people that is here to me reading from the content that's just, typically either me being an idiot in a video game or me and my younger brother being an idiot in a video game, or depending upon when this all, when you might catch this, it could be me and several others being idiots in video games. Who knows? Or maybe just one of them being an idiot in a video game. Or something else. There's more than just video games. There's occasionally, improper activities with explosives. Anyway, right. So, give Coyote a tip. Show some algorithmic love. I hope that you were deeply entertained, and I hope that you have a fantastic day, and you take care. Deuces.